Hey, do you have a favorite Game Boy Advance device? I have a favorite Game Boy Advance device. Or two favorite Game Boy Advance devices. Wait. Or 7 favorite Game Boy Advance devices. Let's talk about it. Hey, welcome back to Digital Jedi Gaming. I'm Matt, and this is the Anbernic RG34XX SP. That's a heck of a name. This device is a direct follow-up to, quite possibly, one of the best devices to come out in the last year, Anbernic's RG35XX SP. Besides your obvious, there's a couple key differences in these devices. First, this guy has sticks, okay? Secondly, you may not be able to see it, but they actually have two different screens. The 34XX SP has a 3.4 inch 3:2 aspect ratio screen, which is a perfect replica of the original Game Boy Advance. The 35XX SP has a 3.5 inch 4:3 aspect ratio screen. The 34XX SP has 2 gigs of RAM, where the 35XX SP has 1 gig of RAM. Other than that, they're pretty much the same. You know, they have the same chipset, they give you the same performance, can play the same games. The key differences here is the aspect ratio of the screen and the sticks. And be honest, I wouldn't even call the 2 gigs of RAM that this device has a major difference. But what they both are is devices that pay homage to the original to the original Nintendo Game Boy Advance SP. So they're both great devices. Now, the 34XX SP itself has been my everyday carry for about a month now. I love this thing. You know, it folds up, it's compact, it's lightweight, it's got a great feel. The D-pad is awesome. The buttons are nice, they have good travel, they're not super noisy. Shoulders and triggers, tiny bit noisy, but they work really well. The sticks themselves, so I haven't used them a lot. I honestly don't know if I find the need for the sticks on this kind of device. I think I prefer it without them. They are functional. They have R3, L3. They work well. They feel pretty good. Got good range of motion. I just don't know if they're for me. And I also find that when you're using the shoulders and triggers and the sticks, it's almost like, you know, playing thumb gymnastics. You know, it's just a little bit of a struggle. On the device itself, I've played mostly Game Boy Advance. I've played Nintendo. I've played Super Nintendo. Played Genesis. I did play some PlayStation, some Dreamcast. Those aren't really for me on this device, but the others look really good on here, especially Game Boy Advance. This thing shines with GBA. So I was using this device and playing some games on it, and it got me thinking, you know, is this my favorite Game Boy Advance device? You know, I got a couple 3:2 aspect ratio devices, and there's a couple more that are pretty big deals coming out this year. So let's take a look and see what, in my opinion, is the best Game Boy Advance device that you can get. So let's get started. Here's all the 3:2 aspect ratios devices that I have. And I'll go over with them individually, but I just wanted to point them out. So as we already talked about, Anbernic's RG34XX SP. KTR's KTR1, which is an Android-based device with a Hilo G99. Ayaneo's Pocket Micro, another Android-based device with also a G99 chipset in it. Powkiddy's V10, which has a 3326. It's the only vertical in my lineup that's a 3:2. One of the OGs, Anbernic's RG351P. Anbernic's RG34XX. And Pocket Go S30. Let's take a look at each one of these guys individually, and I'll give you my opinion on what the perks and not so perks are for it. All right, so let's get started. So first things first, let's look at the Anbernic RG351P. So this is a great device. I mean, it's one of the OGs. It's got a 3326. So if you've been in this game for any length of time, you know that chipset's been around forever, and it's probably still going to be around in a few years, right? It's pretty much immortal. So what I like about this device, D-pad, a little tight, but it feels good. It's very accurate. It feels really good. Face buttons, do well. I mean, they feel good. They respond. They're not super noisy. Sticks, I don't know, for me, a use case if the sticks are necessary, they're very good sticks. I would say for earlier Anbernic stuff, the sticks are really good. Shoulders, triggers, okay, a little bit clicky, not bad. I mean, if you are thinking about using this as a device in bed, you might want to, you know, be mindful of your partner, because these shoulders and triggers are a little clicky. A nice candy bar design, got, you know, little grips on the back there, mostly for not sliding off the table. It's got stereo speakers. They are down firing, but they're stereo speakers. This thing does run Arc OS. Pretty good device. Really, you know, downsides, no Wi-Fi, and of all the devices here, it probably has the, I don't want to say worst, but the worst screen that you can get on all the devices here. Still a great device. Harder to come by because it's not made anymore. There's a different variant called the 351M. All the same stuff. That one, if I remember correctly, 351M does have Wi-Fi, but it's a metal shell. So very cool device. Next one, Powkiddy V10. So this kind of hit the market maybe in the last year. Now this device, super cool, vertical, really affordable. Another 3326. I think this device launched at like $35 US or something. It's got a beautiful screen on it. It's got an amazing D-pad. D-pad on this thing is really, really good. It's still super highlighted. It's probably the best D-pad Powkiddy's ever come out with. Buttons are nice and quiet. They feel really good. Good travel. They're a nice size. They look good. Start and select feel really good. Same thing. Shoulders and triggers are clacky. They're clacky, right? Kind of unusual. I don't know, a negative. I would say, for me, I'm going to say it's a con. This thing doesn't have a dedicated volume button. So it's got you have to hit start and then push up and down for volume, or I can't remember if it's minus, but it's like this weird hotkey combination. Not a deal breaker, but I always kind of wish that, you know, they went ahead and made the minus and plus dedicated volume buttons. And I'm not a huge fan of verticals. And the reason why is in a scenario like this isn't bad, but I don't find this to be the most comfortable gaming position in the world. But I do like it. You know, it's one of the few verticals that I do play with every once in a while. So now here, Anbernic RG34XX. Now this is the unit that came out before the 34XX SP, and they have the same screen. Okay, so this is designed after the original Gameboy Advance, and it's a really cool replica. I mean, they did an amazing job with this. They even put an old style volume wheel. It's actually a rocker, but it looks like a volume wheel. It's very nostalgic, very cool. D-pad is a little bit smaller, a little bit more compact, say compared to like the actual 34XX SP D-pad, a little bit smaller, but it still feels really good. And this one, I think of all of these, has the smallest D-pad. For me, Gameboy Advance is all about D-pad gaming, so you know that's kind of a big deal. The buttons feel really great. They work well. They're quiet. It's got some shoulders, and the triggers are a little bit of a reach. The L2 and R2 are a little bit of a reach. They're a little awkward to reach, but I mean, this is a Gameboy Advance device, right? If you're using it for anything other than Gameboy Advance, maybe NES, SNES, but it's designed for Gameboy Advance, and you don't have L2 and R2 for Gameboy Advance, so I don't call it like a big deal. I don't know if I call it a negative. The only thing I would say negative-wise, especially if you're reaching for R2 and L2, it's not the most comfortable device in the world, but it's not bad. I mean, like the way I hold it, I find, you know, a little bit annoying right there on those two ring fingers, but not terrible. Do dig it. Definitely a good device. So interesting. KTR's KTR1. So this device, of all of these, has the biggest screen. I have a hard time recommending this device, and let me tell you why. I've had 3 of these, and my issue is that all 3 of them is a different experience. And what I mean by that is the very first one I had this really just wonky, like, well, actually they all have kind of wonky software, to be honest with you. To really take advantage of this device and appreciate the device, Gamma OS is a must for this. It's an absolute must. The stock firmware is just kind of, It doesn't have support for, you know, the Play Store and Google Play services, and it's just a little weird and a little choppy. Gamma OS really just tuned this up, gave it a little bit better battery life, gave it a little bit better response time, input response time. I mean, just really did a really good job on this one. But the first one for me, it was kind of odd because it was, you know, this comes in a bunch of different variations, but the first one was the stick on top. And for me, Game Boy Advance is a D-pad console, so it's stick on top I thought kind of odd. You know what I mean? Now, the second one I had was also stick on top, but the bigger challenge was that the D-pad was super duper stiff. Like it just wasn't enjoyable. It was like not real responsive, and it was just kind of challenging. And that was indicative of this specific device. You know, a lot of feedback came from people that had these devices that were really disappointed because it was launched as being this customizable device. You can decide whether you want a plastic shell, a metal shell, where you wanted the D-pad, how much RAM. And then there was just a lot of, you know, little quirks and issues that people just weren't a big fan of, considering the price point. Now, this one here that I've kept this one because I really enjoy this one. The D-pad is on top, and it's great. It feels really good. It's the perfect softness. Edges are a tiny bit sharp, but still feels really good. Buttons feel really good. I would say these buttons are a tiny bit too mushy, but they still feel pretty good. You know, I don't have any complaints about them. They feel really good. You know, shoulders and triggers in line. They are clicky. I don't know if the microphone's picking up, but they are kind of clicky. Sticks, of all these devices, this is probably the only one of these that I would use to play PlayStation or Dreamcast. This is a really capable device. It's got a MediaTek Helio G99, so you can do, you know, N64 on this, no problem. And it actually, because of the size of the device with the 4-inch screen and how it feels, you can do N64 on this without any issues. So you can do some light PS2 and some GameCube on it, but for me, the extent of that is probably just N64. This is a great device for PSP. Works really well for PSP. But for me, again, you know, probably Game Boy Advance mostly. But I like it. It's a pretty good device. So this is going to say was our top end premium device. This is the Ayaneo Pocket Micro. So this one also has the same MediaTek Helio G99 chipset that the KTR1 has. This one comes with 8 gigs of RAM. 8 gigs or 6 gigs of RAM. Yeah, this is 8 gigs of RAM and 256 internal. Very cool device, very premium, all aluminum shell, very nice. Now I know it's got really sharp edges and corners. It's not uncomfortable like it looks like. It actually feels pretty good to hold in hand. You know, now my gripe with this one is a couple different things. First off, these sticks have no place on this device. I don't see a point for having these sticks on this device at all. Because of the way the device is shaped, the size of the device and how sharp the corners are, it's just uncomfortable to play stick-based games on this. Any PlayStation or, you know, Android games where you need to use it, where it's stick-centric, I just don't know if this is the device for it. Granted, these sticks, they're tiny sticks. They're like Joy-Cons, maybe even a little bit smaller. They feel pretty good. They actually feel really good as sticks. You know, if you're holding it like this or something, they feel, you know, they got good travel. They're nice and kind of tight. They're not all over the place, but they just don't feel good on this device, if that makes sense. You know, this is a premium device, right? You know, very nice, all glass front, beautiful screen. I don't know if this is, you know, at $160, I don't know if this is $130 better than this, or even, you know, $100 better than this. If I had a pick, I'd say no, it's not $100 better than this. Definitely not $130 better than this, or $100 better than this. Great device. I don't know if it's worth the dollar. You know, that's just my take on it. The other thing too is speakers are downfiring, not a huge deal, but it's got some extra buttons here. They all kind of launch different, like, you know, their software, their internal software is wonky. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't work. Sometimes you turn the device on and the controller says it's enabled, but the controller doesn't work. So you have to go to the menu and turn the controller, cycle the control on and off. I know they have updates. I know Gamma has a build for this that I think has fixed most of that. But again, I still go back to my original point. This is awesome. I don't think it's $160 awesome. Not for the use case. So lastly is, for me, it's kind of a collector's device. I'm gonna be honest with you. This is probably the worst of all these devices I have on this list here. It's the Pocket Go S30. Really cool looking device. It has a Super Nintendo controller vibe to it. D-pad's not terrible, a little bit tight. D-pad's not terrible. It's got a stick that I'm gonna be honest with you, I've never used. Because the device is pretty underpowered. I don't even remember what chipset it is. I think it's like an Anbernic or something like that. Like the Miu Mini original chipset is what I want to say on it. It can handle Gameboy Advance, you know, but it's not going to handle really anything above, you know, it can handle some light PlayStation, but that's probably a struggle for it. The buttons feel pretty good, you know, a little clicky. You know, they're not the worst, not the best, but it's got some, you know, this one's a little bit older, so this device has got some issues like the volume rocker doesn't always work sometimes. It's got something called Simple OS, which is a very, I would say, unpolished operating system. It looks pretty, but it's not as user-friendly as some of the others. With most of these others, you just hit start and select like this, and you get out of a game, right? Oh, sorry, menu and select, and you get out of a game. Whereas with this guy, you have to actually, you know, you have to hit start and select, and it gets to the menu, and then you have to go to RetroArch, and you have to hit quit and then back out, and it's a lot of different steps. So very cool device, very cool device to have in a collection. I don't know if I'd say this would be a main everyday device that I play often. In fact, I don't play it very often. So in addition to these, I did mention that there's some other new devices that are coming out this year that are really promising looking. So first things first, KTR has announced that they're actually working on a KTR2. So looks like it's going to be about the same screen. They said they're going to have improved hardware, which is going to have things like they're going up to a Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, which is an incredible chipset. And they're going to add better D-pad and better internals and active cooling and stuff. So we'll see what that looks like. They're crowdfunding that right now. Another device, Powkiddy is releasing the RGB50, which is getting a lot of buzz because we don't really know what the chipset is, but it's looking like it's going to be some kind of all-winner chipset, and it's going to have a 5-inch screen, which is pretty amazing. And 3:2 aspect ratio, of course. Another device that we're hearing about that a lot of people are looking forward to is the GKD Little. Funny name because it's not little. It's touted to have, I think, a 4 or 5-inch 3:2 aspect ratio screen. We don't know much about it, but these are rumored devices. Ayaneo is launching the Pocket Ace, which has a Snapdragon G3 Gen 2, which is going to be the most powerful chipset in Android devices, which is pretty amazing. It's going to be a 3:2 5-inch aspect ratio device. Looks incredible. I mean, you can pretty much game anything on there. And 3:2, that big with a 5-inch screen, you could play 16:9 and it'll look amazing on there. So Magic X is releasing the 135. We don't have a lot of information on the specs, but we do know it's a 3.5 inch with a second D-pad for tape mode, and it looks pretty awesome. So with all that being said, I think for me, if I was gonna pick a device that was my dedicated Game Boy Advance device, I'm really torn. I'd probably have to say it comes down to the KTR1, this specific KTR1, and the RGB34XX SP. So let me tell you why. Just the feel, the experience, the feel of the D-pad is very good on this device. It's really good. Is it better than this one? No. But why I'm considering is this screen. It's so big. I have this on the lowest brightness for the camera, but it gets pretty bright. And the fact that you can play other things like PSP and stuff on this, and it's comfortable to hold, is you know, makes it a pretty big contender. But again, we go back to the challenge that, you know, one, you can't get these anymore. They're not readily available. And two, when you get them, it's a crapshoot as to what device you're gonna actually get. So that's tough for me to recommend this one and say that it's the one for you. Whereas the 34XX SP, yeah, the screen is not as big, but it is very vibrant. The D-pad is incredible. The buttons are great. You know, the sticks are I would say, you know, this device can go without sticks. I'd love if they released another one of these without sticks. I'd love if they released a 4-inch variant of this without the sticks. That would be just perfect if they could do that. But I mean, for me, I'm gonna say that this is probably my dedicated GBA device, just because of between those features about, you know, how comfortable everything is, how readily available, and it's a lot less expensive than this one. Because when this first launched, it was quite expensive. And the other part is that just the clamshell design is just, it's impeccable, man. It's just so good. It's so pocketable. I don't really carry stuff in my pocket, but this goes in my backpack with me or my TomTalk almost everywhere. And it's a great device to just pop out and get going. You know, you have a bunch of different OS options with this. It comes with the stock, which Anbernic has done an incredible job with. You have Newly, you have MuOS, you have MinUI, and you also have Rocknix now, which is my preferred OS for this device. I mean, it's just, for me, it's this. I've played more Gameboy Advance on this than any of the other devices, and I would say it's my dedicated one. And it's the most affordable. Other than this guy here, which is about $35, but I'm not a huge fan of it because it's vertical, and I find it weird that there's no dedicated volume button. This guy runs ArcOS, which is awesome, but it's not for me. This guy is definitely is better quality. The 34XX itself is the same guts, same screen. Again, it goes back to ergonomics on this one for me. So this one just has better ergonomics, and it's more portable or pocketable even because of, you know, the clamshell. So I'm gonna say for me, 34XX SP is the way to go. I mean, I'll leave a link in the bottom where you can get it. Awesome device. You can still get a 34XX. You can still get a V10. You can still get an Ayaneo Pocket Micro. These guys, 351P, you can find it on the used market. KTR1, you can find that on the used market. And the Pocket Go S30, you can find it. It's going to be super hard to find because it's an older device. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching. I'm Matt. Take it easy and keep gaming.